Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be ranking all EX Pokemon from Temporal Forces. This is, I think, a really interesting set as there aren't too many or really any broken EXs, but although okay, there are a few that are really bad, but most of them are pretty okay, which is really interesting. So I think I don't know. There's some really cool EXs. There's a few really bad ones, and then there's some that are pretty good, but I don't think there are any that are truly broken. I think that was also the same thing with the last set, Paradox Rift, which didn't have any broken EXs, the best of which were, I mean, there are a decent amount that were pretty good. Again, with similar to Paradox Rift, unfortunately, most are basics, or at least a decent amount are, and the basics are generally better. There aren't any, in my opinion, truly terrible basics. I don't remember all the cards to be honest though. But anyway, let's hop into it. Oh, and you see that little reminder there. Subscribe. Yep, I'll be doing more Temporal Forces content in this weekend. I don't know which day. It might be Saturday. It might be Sunday. It might be Friday. I don't think it'll be Friday. But it's probably going to be Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to be doing a post-rotation tournament, which includes Temporal Forces. So that will be Brilliant Stars through Temporal Forces on the Pokemon TCG Simulator. So it's completely free. You don't need to like buy any cards or anything. You don't need to get any cards. It's not live. So you have all the cards, and I will have a link down below in the description to the Discord. Well, it's actually no, it's on the Pokemon TCG Simulator Discord. So you can find that on the simulator, or you can join my Discord, which is linked on my YouTube banner. YouTube makes it hard to find Discord link or like links in general for some reason. You change stuff. So anyway, you can join my Discord server and just ping me as well. But anyway, let's just hop into things. And as I said, subscribe. But we have number 15 here, Gengar EX. Gengar EX, honestly, I didn't realize how terrible it was when I first saw it. Its ability, Gnawing Curse. Oh, and one thing, one other thing to note is all the images that are proxies, which are like translations, are from Justin Basil. So shouts to Justin Basil and the website which provides proxies. Yeah, you can check out Justin Basil's channel down below as well. It will probably be mentioned. Anyways, Gengar EX here, 310 HP is kind of bad. It's not like unplayably bad, but it's kind of bad. 2 Retreat is also kind of bad. Not awful again, but not necessarily what you're looking for. You'd probably rather be 1, 4, or 0. Obviously, 0 would be good. 4, there's like a tool, and then 1 is obviously better than 2. 3 is the worst. 3 is probably the worst for 2 cost, but 2 is not amazing. But then your ability non-curse when your opponent attaches an energy from the hand to one of their Pokemon, put 2 damage cards on that Pokemon. You can stack it, so that's kind of fun. I guess it's not even like that good though. So maybe in certain weird niche scenarios, I guess it's good against Gardenia's Vigor because that's accelerating energy from their hand. So Gardenia's Vigor plus attach. Also, sorry, I was just talking a lot about the new Pokemon TCG client, so that was really exciting. But now my voice is kind of gone for whatever reason. It wasn't that much time. It was like 10, 15 minutes. Anyway, so yeah, you can stack this. Gardenia's Vigor, they could take potentially if you have 4 Gengars, they could take 240 damage across attaching 3 energies, but that's like kind of absurd. That's like not gonna happen. Let's be honest. Gardenia's Vigor is not attaching 2 energies. You never hit it. Anyway, so that ability is okay, but not super good. It is like extra damage. You can kind of just say, oh, maybe 20, maybe 40 extra damage on the attack, and then your attack here is Tricky Steps, 160, Dark, Dark, and then you may move an energy from your opponent's active to one of their bench. This is like a little bit of energy disruption, so then they have to reattach, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, it's not a lot of damage on a stage 2 for multiple energy. Obviously, you're kind of just comparing this to Charizard, and it's much, much worse, as it has lower HP, or this has lower HP and lower damage output, and like harder acceleration. You do have Dark Patch, and then you have the other Gengar that lets you switch around, which are both actually really good cards to help this deck out, but um, the other Gengar is pretty good at least, and Dark Patch is really good. But that's it. Like this card doesn't really have anything else going for it. I can't really think of uses. Maybe if you need a little extra damage, but I'd much rather play like Vitality Man or anything like Iron Valiant probably. Number 14, we have Scovillain EX. And first of all, some of the cards on the right, I probably forgot some, but there's 2 attacks here as a stage 1 EX, 260 HP, 1 colorless, Spicy Bind. You burn, and then the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So this is kind of interesting for boss trapping. You can boss something and then trap it, or prime catcher or counter catcher and trap it. But obviously the issue is that they're going to die because you're burning them, so you're actually damaging them. You could, I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's a way to like remove the special condition, but I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. But obviously this is like kind of bad because you want to trap them forever. It could be like, oh, I could trap them and then eventually knock them out or something, but that seems pretty like weird and niche. You'd want to trap them for a certain number of turns. It's a long number of turns, but it's not like long enough for you to actually deck them out. So I don't know. That attack is pretty bad. Two-faced crush is much or crash is much more interesting. However, for two grass 140, discard a random card for your opponent's hand. Discard the top card of your opponent's deck. Getting the energy on it is kind of hard. There's Gardenia's Vigor, which is bad. Not the worst. It could potentially become good, but right now it's pretty bad. But you do have other forms of hand disruption. So you can play Iono, Airy, Roxanne, Hand Trimmer, Grabber, or some combination of those. And I think there might be some other options as well. And the big issue for me is this is like worse than Trevenant V. Oh no, Trevenant V is rotating. I always forget that. So yeah, this could be used. It's not great though. It's pretty bad, in fact. I mean, it's number 14. So yeah. Number 13 here we have for giraffe, for giraffe. Yeah, I guess it's for giraffe. No, for a giraffe. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, it's the giraffe one. Giraffe backwards and forwards. Um, Anyway, so this has an ability. I'm just like so thrown off by it and the name, and there's giraffe or whatever. I feel like it should be pronounced the same. Anyway, and so we have your ability Armored Tail, which is the real selling point of this card. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's basic Pokemon EX, except it's directly worse than Mimikyu, which walls EXs and any EXs and any Pokemon V as well. So yeah, that's not an amazing ability. You do have 260 HP, you're darkness type, but you're weak to grass, which is actually probably arguably bad. Now you're immune to a card we'll talk about later, but it's still not great. And then you have Dirty Beam, which does for 160 for colorless grass. No, sorry, colorless psychic, colorless. I don't know why I said it in that order, but yeah. So that's 3 energy. You do need a colorless. You can use like Zaddy. You can use double turbo. I didn't mention that, but that's not amazing because it does 160 and then 30 to one of your opponent's bench. So you don't want double turbo on. This is okay. I've seen this actually seen play post rotation in this Pathra decks, which aren't amazing, but this is obviously disruptive. I do think Mimikyu is just much better though, and that's probably why this is so low. And its attack's not great. It's kind of awkward. It's not a terrible card, and I wouldn't be shocked if it saw play somewhere down the line. But basic EXs are okay. As I said, there's a lot in this set. There's a lot in the last set, and they're for the most part pretty good. We haven't seen any on this list just yet, so I think this card's pretty cool. But it just doesn't wall off enough. Also, why does it have like a chain jump over his head? It's kind of weird. Anyway, number 12, Koraidon EX. This has 2 attacks. Eventual Hammer for, oh, I forgot to include a card here, but it's not that good. Anyway, it's an ancient for 20, for colorless, it does 20 and 10 more for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Kaiser Tackle, Fire, Fighting, 280, 62 itself. 280 is good, obviously, but it's kind of hard to power up, like very hard to power up. You do have Garchomp EX. You do have, I guess, Sada's Vitality energy switch, but you like need energy switch, right? And then you can put in Lost Zone, and that is a thing you can do. But it's kind of like Giratina, but I'd say it's worse than Giratina. The one thing you can use is Regidrago. If you start to copy this, which is okay maybe, but it's not amazing as well. And there's not too much going for this basic Pokemon. It does have high damage output, but it's pretty awkward to pay. Although, as I said, there's Lost Zone. Any basic Pokemon on this list can be used with Lost Zone, although some like it more than others, especially this, like Fire and Fighting aren't great Lost Zone types, so not horrible Lost Zone types, but having to play both of those means you're probably not running Radiant Greninja, you're probably running Radiant Charizard, and then you have good fighting stuff in Groudon, which is quite good, and Terrakion, which is also pretty good. But like, come on, like you'd rather be playing Radiant Greninja and like Sableye, right? So you can play probably Sableye, but then you're getting to 3 types. You don't really want to push it much beyond that, and you're not playing Roaring Moon. So there are lots of weird things, and it's not amazing. Next, we have number 11, Wugtrio EX. This is probably the card on the list that was the hardest to rank because it's kind of generic. But the main attack here, Triple Pump, for 1 water, discard up to 3 energy cards from your hand, does 60 damage for each 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy card you discard in this way. I think it's also the same Pokemon. I can't tell. Um, I should know this, and I don't remember, but it's also Lightning, which is fine. It doesn't really matter too much. I guess it's better that it's lightning. And then you have stun hold for water, 120. The defending Pokemon can't retreat. That's kind of bad. But you also have 250 HP, which is kind of low. One retreat. And I don't know. This card's okay, though. 180 snipe is pretty good. So that's why it's up this high. Obviously, it's not up that high, though. It's not an amazing card. There's not much going for it, but there's not too much going against it either. It's pretty generic. I don't know if it's generic, though. It's pretty generic in terms of power level. Next up, number 10, Iron Boulder EX. I've heard this card called the worst EX in the set. I do not agree with that. What I do think instead is it's okay. It's number 10 here. You have Repulsor Axe. First of all, 240 HP is pretty good. 3 Retreat is not so good, but we'll talk about that because it can get free retreat with Future Booster Energy Capsule. Repulsor Axe 60 for fighting colorless, and during your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, assuming it's not switched out, assuming not damage counters, a lot of things you kind of need to assume, but then put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. That is a decent amount of damage, essentially 140 for fighting colorless, but you can also accelerate to it with Reboot Pod. Oh, I forgot to put the translated cards here. Anyway, you got Maridon, you got Reboot Pod, which accelerate energy to future Pokemon. You have Iron Crown EX that gives you increases your damage, as well as Future Booster Energy Capsule, which increases your damage. You also have Gutsy Pickaxe plus Cryptomaniac's Deciphering, allowing you to accelerate fighting energy, which is incredibly good. It's a combo that I haven't heard talked about like at all, but it's actually pretty decent. And so you can use that to get energy onto your Iron Boulder, and that's not too hard to do, and then you can attack with it, and then you're in a pretty good position. So I actually think Iron Boulder EX is a potentially viable deck on its own with like some future support, which is really cool and not something I was expecting. And I'm looking forward to honestly messing around with it some. But it's not amazing. Its damage output's not insane. Gading Fire is kind of similar, high damage output now, but on the other hand, it's kind of awkward to pay because it's fire. It's 2 fire colorless. Again, it's very similar to Karaidon EX, kind of like Roaring Moon EX as well. You do have fire energy acceleration options though. You have Magma Basin plus Armouge and Professor Sada's Vitality. You do have, of course, the Lost Zone engine, and then you do have Charizard EX, which accelerates energy, and it's mostly here because of Charizard EX. You can also use it with Moltres, which buffs your damage by 10, but it stacks. So you can have 2 Moltres in play, and then you're hitting 280, which is one of the magic numbers. That's really good. You can't use this attack until you switch out of the active, but that's okay. This card is honestly pretty okay. Not awful by any means, but I also don't think it's amazing or game dominating. Next up, number 8, Incineroar EX. Gengar EX has 320 HP, and its ability Hustle Play. Attacks used by this Pokemon cost 1 colorless less for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And keep in mind this does affect TMs, which is kind of cool, but also not that important. But the main attack here, obviously, the only attack here is Blaze Bomb, which does 240 for Fire colorless, and it also does Burn. That's essentially 260, potentially 280 if they don't switch out and they don't flip heads. So that's okay. That's pretty decent for 1 fire if they have 4 bench, which is not crazy, or 2, which again is not crazy. You could pair this with Magma Basin as well to get energy on. But then you can copy your previous evolutions with Relicanth, which just lets you copy your previous evolutions attacks, including Litten, which does 20 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So let's say your opponent hits you for 200 damage. That is not uncommon. We saw, I think, multiple Pokemon so far that hit that. So they hit that, and then you attach a second energy. Okay, now you can hit for 400 damage. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. So you can do that combo, and that is very powerful. You can also copy Torcat. I've seen a lot of people talking about this card. Is it good? I mean, it's okay, but it's also a stage 1. So you need to evolve the basic into the stage 1, into the stage 2. You cannot react candy at all in order to use that Torcat. It gives you like invulnerability. Then you can be hitting like 620 damage next turn, which is kind of funny, but not necessarily the most useful. Anyway, next up we have Walking Wake EX. Walking Wake is, I think, another deck that I'm super hyped for, that I wasn't hyped. I had this much lower before. I had it like 10, 11, maybe even 12 before this video, and then I've moved it up since then. Walking Wake EX, it's a Zero Wave ability, hits through effects. I don't even know why that's an ability. That should normally be just an effect of the attack. It's kind of strange seeing it there. 220 HP at 1 retreat. And then Cathartic Roar for watercolors, costs 120, but if your opponent's active is affected by a special condition, it does 120 more. So that's 240, but that damage number is super weird. I mean, it's not that weird, but it becomes super weird when you factor into all the, again, into account all of the other, account for, yeah, I was like, what am I saying? Yeah, once you account for all the other things, You have double turbo energy, reducing your damage, which you might want. You have, of course, this special condition on your opponent's active that is probably poison, that is going to do more damage. So, first of all, getting energy on. You have Palkia V-Star, Origin Form Palkia V-Star. That you're just going to slap on a bunch of energy once. It's pretty nice. You might play it. You probably play it, but you don't have to. You could use like 4 Seal Stone. Next, you have Professor Sada's Vitality to accelerate energy, kind of like Roaring Moon, and then you can just attach a double turbo, so it's arguably easier to attack than with Roaring Moon. And then, of course, you have the Poison, the special condition, which is probably Poison. You have Brute Bonnet, which, if it has the Ancient Boost Energy Capsule tool attached, you're poisoning both actives. But if you have an Ancient Boost Energy Capsule on your own Walking Wake EX in the active, then you're going to be having 60 more HP, so you're at 280. And then you're also immune to the special condition, which you probably want to do. You don't have to, but it would be nice. And then you're also poisoning your opponent's active, so that's 10 more. So with the double turbo and Brute Bonnet Raw, that would just be essentially 230. I can't really think of a case where your opponent wouldn't take the poison damage unless they're immune, in which case you're not doing the extra damage. Aside from that, then you have Dangerous Jungle and Hisuian Radiant Sneasler, or no, Radiant Hisuian Sneasler. So those both add 20 poison damage, except Dangerous Jungle does not add 20 poison damage to Darkness type Pokemon, which is kind of bad because Darkness types are arguably the best type in the game with Charizard EX and Roaring Moon EX. Oh, and by the way, this is kind of like a bad transition, but I am doing a YouTube survey for a Family Feud video. So one, if you want to play in that, just DM me on Discord, but also I will have linked down below the survey for the Family Feud video. Anyways, then, speaking of poison and double turbo energy and Brute Bonnet and all this good stuff, you have Cloth. Cloth does 190 for colorless. Colorless if your opponent's active is affected by a special condition. That's dropped down to 170 with double turbo, but then you get extra damage with Brute Bonnet. So you have a single prize attack that's pretty good, a multi-prize attack that's pretty good, and I think you have this interesting deck, ignoring the Palkia. I wouldn't play that necessarily, but you have probably not Hisuian Electrode V, but instead you're replacing that with the Walking Wake EX. Now you're actually playing more energy, which is arguably very good because that deck would definitely run out of energy. And you have just some really cool combos going on with poison, modular damage by a little bit, and multiple attacking options. That being said, this is kind of clunky to pull off. Your damage is kind of capped in your like basics, which can cause problems. Next up, we have 6 Maridon EX. Maybe this should have been a little lower, but I think it's pretty good. Repulsor Bolt, it does 60 and 100 more if your opponent's active has damage on it already. Cyber Drive, 220 for Lightning Psychic Colorless. First of all, you can get the damage on your opponent's active, either attacking with Maridon or using Iron Valiant EX's ability. You can also use Reboot Pod to get energy on, as well as the Maridon. And then you have Iron Crown EX to boost damage and Future Booster Energy Capsule to boost damage as well. And for the most part, this is arguably the best attacker in the Future Box deck, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, but it's good. Its damage is decently high, and you can attack for 2 energy as well, which is pretty nice. Next up, number 5, we have Scizor EX, a bit more of an interesting card. I think a hot take as well. I think this card is pretty good. I think it's not broken, but I think it's decent. And that's exactly what you need this card to be, because of course we have the really good Scizor from Obsidian Flames. Punishing Scissors 10-50 more for each of your opponent's Pokemon to play with an ability, which is super good, but not obviously good against everything. If they don't have a lot of abilities, then it's bad. Path is rotating though, which is nice. But Scizor EX here has 2 interesting attacks that are both 2 energy. The first is for 2 colors, so you could use double turbo, but I don't know if you want to do that. Instead, you have Matang, which can accelerate energy from the top of your deck, which is okay. But Scizor EX here at Steel Wing for 2 colors, 70. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 50 less from damage, and you can stack this with Full Metal Lab. All metal Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, take 30 less damage from attacks, which is after weakness and resistance, which is fine, I guess. Fire's okay. But so then you're taking 80 less, which is pretty good, putting you up to essentially 350 HP. There are ways to boost that higher as well if you wanted to. But you can go Scizor EX, be kind of tanky, which is going to be annoying to deal with. As I said, you're taking 80 less, so if your opponent's hitting, say, 200, they'll be hitting 120, and they will have to 3-shot you, which is really nice for you. Aside from that, you have Crossbreaker, your main attack here from Metal, 120, described to 2 metal energy from this Pokemon. It does 120 per. So that is pretty good, up to 240, not amazing. We've seen this attack other places. or like similar amounts of damage on basics for 3 energy. This is a stage 1 for 2. Higher HP. The main thing is it's an attacking option in Scizor that does a decent amount of damage, like a very sizable amount of damage that is actually usable in every matchup, and so that's pretty good. So I think between the two Scizors, Scizor EX and single price Scizor, you have some really great attacking options. Also, Scizor, really fun Pokemon. But yeah, no, Scizor, super good card. I think it's one that's going to see some play. Scizor EX, I think single price Scizor will see a ton of play, and Scizor EX, thanks to that, we'll see some play. I don't know if I'm favoring this too much because I like single price Scizor, but I think this card's pretty cool. Next up, number 4, we got Raging Bull EX. This is probably, I don't know if I'd say it's the most controversial Pokemon, but I think it's the most boomer bust Pokemon on this list, arguably. Raging Bolt EX here has its attack here, Climactic Descent, Lightning Fighting. You may discard any amount of basic energy from your Pokemon. It does 70 for each card you discard in this way. This is kind of like cards like Rayquaza VMAX, Rayquaza EX, Chambao EX, um, Reshiram, which is Reshiram and Zekrom. There have been a lot of cards like this that are some of them have been really decent, and some of them have been really hyped and been really bad. So I think it's the card that people are hyping up, and some people are saying it's broken. I think it's decent. You can, but not broken. You can accelerate energy to this using Professor Sada's Vitality and Sandy Shocks to get other energy in play. Then you can also accelerate energy with Garchomp EX. You can use Mirage Gate, or you can use Gardevoir. Gardevoir is the most interesting option because it's a different type of energy, which is pretty awkward, but it gets as much energy as you want. Meaning once you're set up and flowing, you're literally just one-shotting everything every turn, and it is arguably the best attacker in Gardevoir. It is that uncapped max damage attacker in Gardevoir that you're looking for. Overall, I don't know how good it's going to be, but it has the potential to one-shot everything, which is always good. Additionally, 240 HP plus a tool can get you up to really high amounts of HP for a basic Pokemon, which is really nice. And I think this card can be really good. Again, you could play it in Lost One as well, which is decent. I don't know exactly how I feel about that. You're looking for, I think, that 4 energy margin, because if you have 3, you're just hitting 210, which is not amazing. Not bad, but not the best. Next up, that's right, we got number 3 here, Torterra EX. 340 HP on stage 2, or on anything, is very high. Not like absurd on a stage 2, but pretty high. Also, 4 colorless is okay for the retreat cost. Not amazing, but it's fine. It honestly doesn't really matter at all for this card. Force March, however, is your main attack, pretty much the only attack you'll be using. You do have Jungle Hammer 150 for colorless grass, and then you heal 50. Maybe in certain scenarios the healing could be useful, but it's a lot of energy. The main thing here, however, is Forest March. It does 30 for each grass Pokemon you have in play. Also, there is Torterra with Evo Press, a single prizer, that does 50 for each your evolution Pokemon in play. Potentially, Evo Press will be doing more damage, and it is more energy, though. You have less HP, but you're a single prizer, so some interesting things to consider there. But on top of that, you also have Forest March, which will be hitting 180 pretty consistently. You're probably only playing grass Pokemon. Then you need to look at the grass Pokemon. And of course, you're looking at Grottle, which is super good. Stage 1 that obviously evolves into Torterra. Once during each turn for each Grottle you have in play, you can search your deck for a grass Pokemon, which is really useful. I mean, you can use each Grottle once. It's not like exponential. But so if you have 4 Grottles, you can search for 4 grass Pokemon. I think that makes sense, but I said it in a weird way. Anyway, so you can get a lot of Pokemon, and that's a really good card. You also have Rabsca, which is like a Manaphy Jirachi replacement, as well as there's a Toadstool EX. There's also single prize Toadstool as a tech option. Student Lillian V-Star is a pretty good Pokemon V-Star to get. Again, more grass Pokemon. In terms of draw, this is the kind of scary part. You have Beautyfly and Radiant Venusaur. Both of these are okay. Radiant Venusaur isn't great, but it also is a Radiant basic. Like, it's a basic Pokemon, so you can't expect it to do too much. It's pretty good for what it does. And then Beautyfly here is a stage 2. It's kind of scary having a stage 2 draw engine, but I think you can get by with it. The biggest issue, as I said, is the draw engine, but the upside is also, I didn't put Professor Terra's scenario, but you can heal this Pokemon up. It's really hard to one-shot, almost impossible, not impossible, but very close. The one issue is like insta-kill attacks like Roaring Moon, which just one-shot you. So you may be looking to put Mist Energy on. But for the most part, this card's super tanky. This is another Boomer Bust style card that could be really good, it could be really bad, but I think it's really fun and really powerful. And not necessarily in terms of its damage output, but in terms of its HP, and is one of the best grass cards we've seen in a decent amount of time. But next up, we have another grass Pokemon, Iron Leaves EX. This Pokemon, put simply, when you play it, you move your other energy to it and move it into the active, so it's easy to attack in, assuming you play a few grass energy, which you can easily do with Arceus, V-Star, to get energies in play. You can put energy in play again with the future stuff as well. It's future, you can boost its damage, which is moderately useful. But then you also are grass, so you one-shot Charizard EX. Pretty much this is the only reason you'd play this card, but it is a pretty good use, so you just one-shot Charizard. So yeah, pretty much that's about it, right? You're gonna be one-shotting Charizard EX, and there's not too much more than that, but it's really good at one-shotting Charizard. Yeah, pretty much that's it. It's also decent in the future box because you can get the energy on so more easily because it kind of acts as its own energy switch. You can also stretch its abilities on play from hand, so you can use the future tool Techno Radar. Obviously, Nest Ball won't trigger its ability, but Techno Radar to search out and then playing it will. Yeah, pretty straightforward. But I want to talk about Iron Crown EX now. That's right, Iron Crown EX with Cobalt Commander. Your future Pokemon, except Iron Crown EX, for whatever reason, do 20 more to your opponent's active. Before weakness and resistance, Twin Chatels does 50 to your opponent's Pokemon as well for Psychic Colorless, hitting through Manaphy, which is really nice in specifically Lost Zone. I do think Iron Crown EX is going to be one of the best Pokemon we've seen in quite a while. It is like a really good EX. I think it has potential if Future is able to do stuff. Future right now looks okay. You have Maridon, which I mentioned, which I keep. I don't have in English. I will be ranking all the single prizers though from the set as well, and Maridon will be somewhat high, I imagine. I don't know. But then Future Boost Energy Capsule will also boost damage more. Reboot Pod gets energy in play. So you get that energy in play, you hit really hard. This is also really good in Lost Zone, as I said, because you hit through Manaphy. Manaphy's a bit of a pain for Lost Zone, and with like Radiant Greninja. Overall, I think Iron Crown EX is a super good card. Super difficult to deal with for certain decks because of the spread and hitting through Manaphy. It doesn't do a ton, but you have Iron Valiant EX to add just that extra 20 to KO Manaphy, and then you also have, um, you have a bunch of future attackers which are good, right? Not amazing. I'm nervous about those, but I think you do have enough to work with and win the game. I don't know. I think Future is really close to being a really good deck. I don't know if it has all the pieces just yet. In my ranking the top 10, I rank it as an honorable mention, but I do believe that in Lost Zone it'll be good, and I think Future Lost Zone will be potentially one of the best decks in the upcoming format if people actually play it. There's a chance people like every format. There are always good decks that people just don't play for whatever reason. So we'll see what that deck is. I don't know. I'm not sure what it'll be. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing what decks people are going to play. As I said earlier, if you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. I'm going to be doing more content coming up as well. I got some big plans. I got the Family Feud video. I have, and if you're interested in that, as I said, you can message me on Discord or in the comments as well. And overall, I hope you enjoyed, and I'm excited to see you in the next video.